There was only one name that mattered: Bumpy Johnson.
Harlem, New York. The New York Herald just dropped a bomb, getting their hands on the books and the whispers from the shadows that expose the rot eating out the heart of Harlem's law and order. Ellsworth, Bumpy Johnson, that 27-year-old heavy hitter, whose empire we laid bare in last week's report, drops a cool $500 grand a year to keep mouths shut, paying off 427 badges, 23 gavels, and 47 suits in City Hall who swore to uphold the law, but instead punched the clock for Johnson's outfit, taking their envelope every month like good little soldiers, turning public servants into a private army, guarding the numbers, the booze, and the sins that rake in millions while spitting on every code of honor and the rule of law. The Herald didn't just guess, they had the receipts, leaked by a rat from inside Johnson's own crew, who handed over the ledgers, the schedules, and the black book of names, revealing a fix so tight and so organized that it wasn't just a few bad apples, but the total buyout of Harlem's throne. The paper trail shows every copper in the 5 precincts running Harlem takes his cut every 30 days, ranging from a $50 bill for the beat cops to $2,500 for the precinct captains, paydays that dwarf their clean wages, buying not just a blind eye to Johnson's business, but active muscle and the heads up on any feds looking to topple the king. Every judge banging a gavel in Harlem's courts pockets a quarterly envelope of 3,000 to 10,000 clams to make charges against Johnson's men vanish, to hand down a slap on the wrist when the heat is too high to walk, and to sign the papers Johnson needs to squeeze his rivals or to put the law's stamp on stealing the competition's goods. Every big shot in Harlem, the aldermen, the district bosses, the assemblymen, collects a yearly tribute of $5,000 to $25,000 to use their pull to shield Johnson's racket, to kill any new laws that might hurt business, to make sure the city plays favorites with licenses for Johnson's fronts, and to whisper the names of any honest man dumb enough to try and take Johnson down. You cannot ignore the precision of this setup. This isn't a couple of dirty cops taking a handout. This is the whole damn barrel bought and paid for. This is democracy sold down the river for cold, hard cash, where the men sworn to serve the people bow to the highest bidder. And that bidder, with $5 million of dirty money flowing in every year, has the bankroll to buy the loyalty of men who swore on the Bible to hold the line. The reality is enough to chill your blood. The law is dead in Harlem. The police, paid to shield the innocent, stand guard for the wolves. Judges meant to deliver justice, deliver Johnson's orders, and the politicians meant to speak for the people, speak only for Johnson's profits. The whole machine of government in Harlem runs not for the citizens, but to keep the gears of crime turning. And any man with a badge who tried to stand tall has been bought off, scared into silence, or run out of town, leaving 200,000 souls with no shield against the crime or the criminals who own the hall. The proof lies in 400 pages of handwritten books kept by Raymond Junie Bird, Johnson's moneyman, marking down every grease payment from January 1930 to September 1932. The books use codes, not names, badges for the cops, court numbers for the judges, districts for the suits. But the Herald connected the dots, matching the cash and the dates to the roster and confirming the dirty details by checking the timeline against the shifts and verifying the story with deep throats inside the force and the back rooms of Harlem's political scene. These books show a payout system that runs like a Swiss watch, proving Johnson's crew handles their business with a precision that would make a bank jealous. Take the NYPD's 28th precinct, locking down central Harlem from 123rd to 145th, from 5th Avenue to St. Nicholas Avenue, housing 142 sworn officers. According to Johnson's books, every single one took the envelope. 98 beat cops take $50 a month. That's a monthly nut of $4,900. Yearly cost, $58,800. The deal for the foot soldiers is simple. Every badge, walking the beat, or riding in a radio car gets his 50 on the first of the month, hand-delivered by Johnson's bagmen meeting them at the usual spots, the bars and diners where cops unwind. That 50 buys a lot of favors. They look the other way when Johnson's runners are working the street. They give a 15-minute heads up before a raid hits, buying time to scrub the place clean. They slap cuffs on the competition for nonsense like loitering or vagrancy, while letting Johnson's boys slide on the same thing. They turn a blind eye when Johnson's rivals get hit. Robberies, beatings on the other guy's crew get filed as junk and barely get a second look. The sergeants, all 18 of them, pull down $150 a month. Total payout, $2,700. Annual tag, $32,400. Sergeants run the beat cops and carry extra weight in Johnson's payroll. They decide who keeps an ear to the ground for the straight arrows, who won't take a bribe or might talk. They make sure the schedule puts the dirty cops exactly where Johnson needs protection, and they step in when things get messy. The precinct is flooded with Johnson's men, but the complaints from the citizens are loud. They know the fix is in, watching cases vanish like smoke. The lieutenants and 8 officers take $400 a month to look the other way, $3,200 monthly, $38,400 a year to buy the law. These lieutenants run the floor and decide who gets the heat. They make sure any detective assigned to dig into the crimes involving Johnson's business comes back empty-handed. A quick glance, a shrug, and absolutely zero evidence found. They scrub the arrest sheets. They flag the cases that need to be tossed or watered down before a prosecutor even sees them. They feed Johnson pure gold intelligence on the feds, the FBI, the Treasury, anything that threatens the cash flow. Then there are the captains, 2 men, running the show. They take $2,500 a month each, $5,000 monthly, $60,000 a year. The captain of the 28th holds the keys to Johnson's entire network. Captain Thomas O'Grady owns the day shift. Captain Michael Callahan owns the night. They get the biggest cut because they have the most power. They control the raids. If a door is getting kicked in on Johnson's turf, it is announced days in advance. Johnson shuts down the shop or moves the product long before the sirens wail. They shuffle the deck on personnel. Any cop with a clean conscience gets sent miles away, far from where they could hurt Johnson's operations. They control what goes up the chain to the brass or the feds. If the info might start a fire, they smother it. They hand Johnson the playbook on his rivals. He uses the department's own resources, the very badge and gun, to help Johnson wipe out the competition. The 28th costs nearly $16,000 a month, $189,600 a year. It spreads like a virus across Harlem. The 29th, 30th, 32nd, 34th. Same deal, 285 more badges, bought and paid for. To own the Harlem force, $427,000 a year. That buys 427 officers, 85% of every man with a shield in Harlem. Only 63 cops refuse the cash. They try to walk straight in a house built on crooked foundations. But the system grinds them down. They get the garbage assignments, foot patrol in dead zones during the day when the streets are quiet, stuck behind a desk, pushing paper, kept far away from the pavement where they might see something they shouldn't. When they call for backup against Johnson's crew, silence. No one comes. They are left out in the cold to face the wolves, learning a hard lesson. Trying to enforce the law isn't just useless. It is a good way to get killed. The department hits back if they try to rat. Internal affairs is a joke, handled by the same dirty cops who bury the complaints. The good ones get shipped to the Badlands, or they get hit with fake disciplinary charges until they quit. Then come the whispers from Johnson's crew, anonymous warnings that their families will bleed if they don't look away. Johnson proves he knows where they live. He knows the family routine. Fear turns heroes into cowards, making resistance look like suicide. Pushing the honest men to the edge shows that corruption isn't just allowed here, it is the law. It is enforced. The very institutions built to fight crime are at war with the few men trying to stop it. Johnson's ledgers name 23 judges, men in robes serving Harlem, the price of justice. Depends on the gavel. 8 municipal judges take $3,000 every quarter, $12,000 a year for each man, $96,000 a year total. These judges handle the small stuff: gambling, vice. The cost of doing business for Johnson's soldiers, that $12,000, doubles their city salary. It buys a lot more than just goodwill. It purchases dismissals on technicalities, bad warrants, missing evidence, procedural screw-ups that a clean judge would ignore, but a bought judge calls fatal to the case. And bail? Forget about it. Johnson's men are back on the street immediately, skipping the cell while they wait for trial. If they do get hit, probation, suspended sentences, pocket change for fines. Johnson even buys warrants to harass his rivals. He kicks in their doors and arrests them on charges that don't exist. Then, the criminal court, 6 judges, $10,000 every quarter, $40,000 a year for each robe, $240,000 total. Hold on, let me check the math. 6 men at $40,000, $240,000 on the nose. The numbers don't lie. Criminal court judges, 6 of them, $10,000 a quarter, $40,000 a year to own the bench, $240,000 annually. These judges handle the heavy hitters, felonies, assaults, the big gambling dens. They cost more because their decisions save Johnson's top lieutenants. They protect the top of the food chain, and making a felony disappear is worth a hell of a lot more than a misdemeanor. That $40,000, 4 times what the city pays them, kills the serious charges against Johnson's inner circle before a jury even sits, keeping the leadership untouchable. Even if a good cop gets proof, these judges throw the evidence out. They make prosecution impossible. They whisper to the jury about reasonable doubt until a conviction is out of reach. And if the miracle happens, 2 years, maybe 3. A vacation, not a punishment. It guarantees our soldiers, even the convicted ones, hit the streets again while they still have youth and muscle to offer. Then you have the state Supreme Court justices. 9 of them take $5,000 every quarter. That is 20 large a head, totaling $180,000 a year. These robed judges in New York handle the heavy felonies and big civil disputes, even if fewer of Johnson's troubles climb that high. Most beefs get squashed downstairs in the cheap courts. Still, Johnson keeps a tight leash on the Supreme Court bench. It is strictly for insurance. If a verdict goes sideways downstairs, these men have the power to overturn the damage. They order retrials or kill convictions on technicalities. They also manage the civil wars, where Johnson sues his rivals, or they try to sue him. They make sure the gavel falls in Johnson's favor. Plus, they whisper informal advice on how to structure the rackets. It keeps the legal heat low. They also lend a clean face to Johnson's outfit by showing up at his social galas. Their friendship scares off any honest prosecutor thinking of being a hero. The total bill for owning the courts is $516,000. Actually, let me run those numbers again. Municipal takes $96,000. Criminal takes $240,000. Supreme takes $180,000. Total stands at $516,000. A heavy price for justice. Over $500,000 a year just to make sure Harlem's courts protect the family business instead of prosecuting it. But it is not just badges and gavels. Johnson built a systematic payroll for every political suit in Harlem. The city aldermen. 5 of them in Harlem get $10,000 a year each. That is $50,000 total. They control the licenses and the zoning maps. They also squeeze the police budget and policy. Johnson's cash buys him the right zoning lines. It lets him set up shop where he should not be allowed. He buys liquor licenses, which is ironic considering prohibition, but the city still papers the restaurants, places that supposedly only serve near beer. He also buys opposition to any reform that gives the cops more freedom, or anything creating oversight on judges. He buys intelligence on city investigations that could threaten the operation. Then, the state assemblymen. 3 of them from Harlem take 15 grand a year each. Total cost sits at $45,000. These guys tweak the state laws on gambling, control the state troopers, and pick the judges. Johnson pays them to kill any bill that would raise the penalties for running the numbers game, or any law that lets state police raid local gambling dens. They push for home rule to keep the state out of Harlem's business. They influence who gets nominated, ensuring the judges sent here are men with open pockets for Johnson's cash. Then come the Democratic Party district leaders, 12 bosses running the political clubs. They get 5 to 10 grand a year, depending on their turf. Total tab is $90,000. These leaders pick the candidates and march the voters. Their street power is worth more than their titles. Johnson buys the nomination of crooked judges right at the source. Since these leaders control the conventions, they nominate the aldermen and assemblymen who protect the family. They mobilize the voters to back our friendly candidates. They handle headaches quietly, squashing neighborhood complaints about the rackets or beefs with legit businesses. We settle it politically, not through the cops. Then there is Tammany Hall. Payments go to men like the Manhattan Borough President. The county Democratic chairman gets a cut too, estimated at 15 grand. Johnson is king of Harlem, but his reach goes further. He keeps friends in citywide seats to shield us from reformers or outside investigations. The ones that start outside the neighborhood. Total political graft is $200,000. Now, combine the bribes. Police take $427,000. Judges take $516,000, politicians $200 large. Total comes to over $1 million annually. Hold on, let me check the ledger again. 5 precincts. With 5 precincts, the police tab is actually near $948,000. Let me set the record straight on the overhead. Police graft runs $485,000 a year. That feeds 427 officers, from $50 beat cops to the captains taking $2,500. The courts cost $516,000 a year. That buys 23 judges, costing anywhere from 12 to 40 grand each. Politics costs $200,000 annually. That covers 47 officials. The final bill for all bribery is $1,201,000. That is 24% of Johnson's $5 million empire. Nearly a quarter of every dime is spent on grease. We pay the very institutions meant to hunt us. Square citizens do not carry this kind of weight on their books. This is the criminal tax, money that buys nothing but the permission to keep breaking the law. It turns public servants into private soldiers. It turns democracy into a racket. You have to respect the sheer scale of Johnson's network. But watching the daily grind shows you the system, the machine that makes prosecution impossible. On the first of the month, Johnson's money man, Raymond Byrd, takes 3 bagmen and spends the day dropping envelopes all over Harlem. They do it in broad daylight, fearless, because Johnson knows even the witnesses are on the take. Morning shift, 8 to noon. Byrd walks into the 5 precinct houses, meets the captains right in their offices, and hands over the thick envelopes. The captains act as the bagmen, sliding envelopes to every uniform in the precinct to whet their beaks. It's a charade to make the blood money look like official department business, not a payout from Johnson's empire. Afternoon, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Byrd pays his respects to the bench, walking into private chambers and dropping thick envelopes into open desk drawers, like he's delivering the morning paper, not a bribe. Evening, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Byrd makes the rounds at the gentlemen's clubs, private estates, or steak dinners, passing the cash with a handshake, disguising treason as a favor between old friends. The arrogance is staggering. This business is done in broad daylight, Johnson's man walking into precincts like he holds the deed to the place, showing just how deep the rot has set in. Nobody bats an eye at Bird. Nobody writes a report, because everybody knows the score talking is useless. The brass buries complaints faster than they bury bodies, and rats in this town get silenced quickly. This network builds a fortress around Johnson's operation, 4 walls thick. Wall 1. Prevention. The badge protects the racket by turning a blind eye, killing investigations before they even draw breath, ignoring tips that lead to the boss, and burying intel that might interest the feds. Wall 2. The warning. When the heat comes down or a clean cop gets nosy, the organization gets a head start 24 to 48 hours to scrub the place. Plenty of time to kill the lights and hide the evidence, knowing exactly what the G-men are hunting, letting Johnson burn the paper trail, or move the game entirely, tagging the untouchable cops so the organization knows who to steer clear of, or to squeeze them out to a different beat. Wall 3. Interference. If the cuffs go on despite the warnings, the system breaks from the inside evidence, walks away, and suspects slip their chains before the trial even starts, handing the defense the prosecutor's playbook and cops taking the stand just to lie about procedure and tank the case. Wall 4. The dismissal. If it drags into court, a judge on the payroll bangs the gavel and throws it out by finding loopholes where there aren't any, tossing the smoking gun, or giving jury instructions that make a guilty verdict impossible, handing out sentences lighter than a parking ticket. To beat this machine, the law has to win every single hand. Prevention has to fail, warnings missed, sabotage fixed, and the judge neutralized, while Johnson only needs one link in the chain to hold. The deck is rigged cold against the badge. Johnson doesn't just ask for loyalty. He demands it. It's a calculated game of greed and fear, silver or lead. First, the greed. Officers who play ball get a heavier wallet. A beat cop can pull an extra $75 or $100 monthly if they bring real intel or get their hands dirty, helping the organization run the street. Then, the career. Dirty cops get the plush gigs, the stripes on their sleeves, and the easy rides, because the captains are on the take too, and they look out for the guys who keep the cash flowing. Then comes the fear. You say no, you stand alone. The precinct turns its back on you for threatening their payday, sending you into the fire without a hose, meaning a refusal to take the envelope is a death wish on the streets. Then the phone rings at night. Threats against the wife and kids, reminding you that Johnson can touch anyone, anywhere. Or they frame you up planted guns, lies from fellow officers, destroying a good man's name to protect the racket. The books don't lie. 4 men tried to stand tall and got broken. Take Officer Patrick Murphy, 28th Precinct. Said no for 3 months in 1931. They shipped him to the worst beat in Harlem on foot, left him to face a robbery alone where he was beaten half to death. He took the $50 a month once he healed up. Officer William Jackson, 32nd Precinct, held out for 6 months until they went after his blood, stalking his kids on the way home from school. He took the $50 a month the moment Johnson's man told him it was the price of his children's safety. This machine proves Johnson isn't just looking for bad apples. He's crushing the orchard. It is total, forceful domination, bending good men until they break, using gold and terror to make resistance a suicide mission for anyone but the crazy or the saints. Harlem's law and order is bought and paid for, lock, stock, and barrel, making crime a legal enterprise for Johnson. Numbers, dice, hooch, and girls, even murder, happens without consequence because the halls meant to cage the wolves are built to shelter them. An honest man can't make a dime in this town. You can't fight a competitor who has the precinct in his pocket, who uses lead pipes on rivals and calls in political favors to bypass the red tape. The common man has nowhere to turn. If the mob bleeds you, the cops won't even file the paperwork. The D.A. stays quiet. The judge looks away, and trying to be a hero just gets you fitted for a pine box. The ballot box is a joke in this town. You vote for a suit, but he answers to Johnson, not the people. The law only bites when you don't pay the insurance premium, because the city isn't here to serve. It's just a front for the racket. The price on the street is heavy. Countless souls in Harlem have been bled dry or put in the ground by Johnson's crew with zero consequences. Families get torn apart by the numbers game every day, and the cops just stand guard at the door instead of kicking it in. The neighborhood gets squeezed until there is nothing left but dust, all to line Johnson's pockets and pay off the guys who kiss his ring. Any badge with a conscience gets run out of the precinct, and the clean judges won't even step foot in a Harlem courtroom anymore. Nobody trusts the system when they see the truth every morning. Lady Justice isn't blind, she just holds her hand out for the highest bidder. The feds took a look at the Herald's papers and nearly fell out of their chairs, but they know nailing a man like this is no walk in the park. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District keeps his mouth shut publicly, but inside the office, the birds are singing about mail fraud charges. They are digging into tax evasion and civil rights violations, desperate for any angle to put the cuffs on Johnson and his crooked friends. Even J. Edgar Hoover had to speak up, calling this mess a stain on the badge and promising that the Bureau isn't going to sit on its hands. He swears the full might of the Federal Bureau of Investigation is coming down to scrub the filth out of Harlem and remind everyone who is really in charge. But the feds know talk is cheap. Getting a witness to sing is impossible when they are either on the take or terrified of waking up with a slit throat. Or maybe they just know the game is fixed and their words won't matter, because finding hard proof against a ghost is a headache nobody wants. Johnson doesn't keep a diary. Those books the Herald found were a fluke, because this business runs on cold, hard cash that leaves no footprints. He has been dodging the G-men for years, and even if they drag him to court, good luck finding 12 people in Harlem who want to see him burn. Half the town sees him as a saint rather than a sinner, and the other half knows that a guilty vote means a visit from the heavy squad. It is a monster of a job, trying to nail 427 cops, 23 judges, and 47 politicians all at once. The government doesn't have the muscle to take them all down, so even if they win, they will likely just catch a few stray dogs while the pack keeps running. The hard truth is that Johnson spent 7 years building this machine, and it has its roots wrapped tight around everything in Harlem. You can't just cut the head off. You have to burn the whole field, which would take a war from the state or the feds to really change how this place ticks. But that kind of war isn't popular in the capital, and the crooked suits will fight it tooth and nail, backed by the people on the street. Because in their eyes, a devil like Johnson treats them better than the so-called legitimate government ever did for the colored residents of Harlem.